What's up, folks? David here, TexasHornsFans.com. So when the news broke Wednesday that Texas and OU reached out to the SEC about moving over to the SEC, I was actually on vacation, so the family was actually in New Braunfels with a stop in Austin on the way back, of course. But just getting to gather some thoughts on this and just kind of looking at what has come about from Wednesday, really just through Saturday, a lot of incredibly fast-moving stuff. So when stuff like this comes out, I like to kind of gather my thoughts and read some opinions and some different reports of what's actually coming out, because it's not like you have one official representative from Texas, one from OU, and one from the SEC coming together to do a press conference, with the official word. So there's been a lot of fast and furious action and reporting going on, which is kind of fun. So just getting kind of my thoughts together. Definitely want to know what you think about this, and I wanted to kind of throw out some kind of higher level thoughts of the impact that this could have, and what I think is really going on here, what I think this is really about. I think there's a lot bigger, higher level stuff happening here, just with all of college sports and with all of college football, and really impacting the NCAA as well. So hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a like, share it out. If you're listening on the podcast, don't forget to subscribe. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe as well. And definitely drop your comments below. Let me know what you kind of think about this. Excited, worried, think it's terrible, but it looks like it's going to be a done deal. So this coming week will be pretty interesting, but hope you enjoy the video. So like I said, the Houston Chronicle was credited with breaking this on Wednesday afternoon, and the story then was really just that Texas and OU had officially reached out to the SEC about joining the conference, and then within 48 hours, there were multiple reports that were basically just kind of saying that it's just a matter of time, it's a matter of logistics, that it's actually going to happen. So, everything that's come down since then definitely looks like that this is a done deal. I think the timing was really interesting when this news broke, because it broke right in the middle of SEC media days, and I read in a couple of places that the media members actually started getting word of this when A&M coach Jimbo Fisher was doing his press conference, which is, if that's true, then that's really funny. If anybody can confirm that, or you have any links confirming that, drop them below. But I did read that from a couple of really credible sources. It also came down 1 week after Big 12 Media Days. I was at Big 12 Media Days both days, and obviously, there wasn't a whisper about this, but it definitely looks like this has been in the works for quite a while. Kirk Bowles with the Austin American-Statesman tweeted out, I'll read it here. He said, this was on July 23rd, he said, prominent Big 12 source tells the Austin American-Statesman, the Texas OU move to the SEC is almost done. They've been working on this for a minimum of 6 months, and the A&M leadership was left out of discussions, and it wasn't told about it. The move could become official in a week. So, whether or not, A&M was left out of the discussions or not, I don't know. The likelihood that this has kind of been in the works, kind of been churning in the background for months, I 100% believe that. There's no way that this just kind of came about in the past week or two. Surely this has been going on at least since around the end of the season. And I think that I've read a lot of comments about, the negative comments about this seem to say that, obviously, sure, the SEC top to bottom is the strongest conference. Texas and OU go into this conference is a bad move, and it's going to break up the Big 12, and what's going to happen to the Big 12. And obviously, if you're a Baylor Bears fan or an Iowa State or Oklahoma State fan, I could understand, them being a little more freaked out. But I think that this is so much more about a realignment of college sports and especially college football, and really to an even higher degree, really the dying of the NCAA as a governing body. With the NIL rules changing, with college athletes able to earn income off of their own name and likeness on their own terms, what point is there to have an NCAA anymore? To govern all these, athletes and schools and activities and individual conferences. Because think about this. If college sports and especially college football was reformed, into maybe 4 or 5 massive conferences with roughly, 80 to 84, 86 teams, maybe that turns into, finally, for the first time, one big league that is just made up of 4 conferences and maybe 2 to 4 pods in each conference, like divisions in the NFL. I think that it's so much more likely that this is actually what that's about, more so than just Texas, Oklahoma, and the SEC. I think Texas and Oklahoma kind of see what's happening here. I think they're just kind of trying to get ahead of the curve, and they're wanting to just make a move. The SEC already has 14 teams, so adding 2 more, that's 16. And even if you do have super conferences, you're likely only going to have maybe 16 teams per conference. Maybe you have 20 teams per conference. I don't really see it being that many, but I just think that that's really what this is about. And from a high level, I think that a move like this is inevitable anyway. And let's say Texas and Oklahoma leave the Big 12. Remember, the Big 12 only has 10 teams. That only leaves 8 teams. Those teams could easily, the vast majority of them can easily be swallowed up by the Big 10 or the Pac-12. I could absolutely see Kansas, Oklahoma State, Iowa State going to the Big 10. Maybe West Virginia gets swallowed up by the ACC or whatever that becomes. I'll throw up a graphic here from Kyle Umlang. If you follow him on Twitter or Instagram, you kind of know him as the stats guy, but he's awesome about putting together really cool stats and infographics. This is a graphic that he put together on Instagram, just kind of his predictions of what things could become. Basically, an ACC, a Big 16, kind of the Big 10, Big 16, another 16-team conference that the Big 12 comes into. A Pac-12 becomes 16 teams, and then, of course, the SEC becomes 16 teams. He's got an SEC West division of Texas, Ole Miss, LSU, Oklahoma, Little Aggie, Mississippi State, Arkansas, and Missouri, which makes a lot of sense when you look at it on a map. But this is more representative of what I think this is all about than, like I said, than just Texas, Oklahoma, and the SEC. I just think that Texas and OU are kind of making the move together because, Texas and Oklahoma are way more attractive as a package deal than just one of them, trying to eke their way in. And of course, you stay at an even number of teams that way. It logistically, it just makes sense. So that's kind of my thoughts on what this is really all about. Now, what happens, right? What happens to the Longhorn Network? Likely goes away. The SEC has their own conference network, which makes sense. So the Longhorn Network has been around now for, a little over 10 years. I don't think the vast majority of Texas fans are going to be just out of their minds sad if the Longhorn Network goes away. A lot of cool content on there, a lot of repetitive content though as well. But that's one of the impacts that I think is going to fall kind of by the wayside is the end of the Longhorn Network, which makes sense. Now, logistically, looking at the contracts and from what I understand that I read, and anybody drop in the comments, correct me if I'm wrong, the current Big 12 deal, the TV deals, run through the 24-25 season or school year, basically ending spring of 25. Now, if Texas and OU break that, they're going to owe, I've read, somewhere between $76 to $80 million apiece. Given that Texas is still the number one college sports brand in the country, and if I'm correct, the football program alone is a $1 billion brand. So $76 to $80 million is really nothing if you can jumpstart this move, maybe starting with the 2022 fall school year, which would be next season, which is crazy. I absolutely would not be surprised if that's what happens, barring any weird things that hold this up. I don't see Texas and Oklahoma waiting until the fall of 2025, which would be another 4 years. I don't see that. Obviously, little Aggie is freaking out if you scammer through some of the Aggie message boards on some of the websites like Texas Ags. It's just kind of funny to see them freaking out about this move, which is kind of understandable, but you know that A&M does not want Texas and Oklahoma back in the house when they ran away, when they ran away almost 10 years ago. So, bringing that rivalry back would be so cool. It would be awesome to see that coming back on Thanksgiving, weekend, and keeping the Texas OU game, around the first or second week of October would be really cool. And maybe Oklahoma finds a way to always play Oklahoma State in one of their 3 non-conference games. I don't know. Or maybe the SEC, with an SEC schedule like that, maybe there's only 2 non-conference games. Who knows? But it's overall, it's definitely one of the biggest stories in a long time. And like I said, I think it just makes so much sense given where this whole college sports trajectory is going. I don't see the current system. I don't see the current business model of the NCAA staying intact as it is, and I don't see all of these conferences, especially these little conferences, lasting any more than a few years. I've heard some people throw out some possibilities that maybe the current FBS college football becomes a new division of 4 20-team conferences or 4 16-team conferences, and then the next lower division, whatever teams that includes, maybe the winner of that division, maybe when they win their national championship, they get to move up to their closest regional conference, and or something, and the worst team moves down, into the smaller division, kind of like with soccer. But I don't know, just some interesting scenarios here. Obviously, a lot of money in play, impacting recruiting and impacting the recruiting pitch. How does it affect current, 2022 commitments for Texas and Oklahoma? How does it affect some of the younger guys on the team? Like Bijan Robinson coming into this season with really high hopes, representing the offense as a true sophomore at Big 12 Media Days, which is incredibly rare. Obviously, Iowa State running back Breece Hall, who was the leading rusher in the country last year, returns. So you gotta give him the number one spot as the number one Big 12 running back. But Bijan's got to be right there at number 2 or 3. Let's say this move happens next year. Does Bijan want to be the number, I don't know, the number 3 or 4 running back in the conference? Who knows? But just kind of that it changes a lot to consider, for these young guys that still have 2 or 3 years left in college football, if this move happens, next year for the 2022 fall season. But and then obviously this isn't just about football, right? This would be about basketball. Obviously, Baylor basketball is a consideration in the conference. Kansas is always a basketball powerhouse. Texas in baseball. Oklahoma softball. There's a lot of other stuff to consider here. But I think geographically, regionally, it still makes sense. You've still got old rivals in there like Arkansas. The SEC rivals like Alabama and Auburn stay intact. Georgia, Florida, and then the SEC can gain 2 of the greatest historical rivalries in college football with Texas and Oklahoma and Texas and A&M. That can be an SEC branded product now, which would be really cool. So, super interesting. I don't know. Those are my key points, guys. Drop your comments below. Let me know what you think about those. Let me know your thoughts of anything that I maybe didn't hit on that I'm not considering. But those were my thoughts that I gathered over the past 2 or 3 days about this. But yeah, I mean, my ultimate point is that this is a lot more happening here than just Texas, Oklahoma, and the SEC. This is a bigger deal, and this is just kind of, I think, the start of the dominoes. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens by this time next weekend, to see what's actually official and what we can expect for next season. So hope you enjoyed the video. Like I said, if you're on the podcast, don't forget to subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube or anywhere else, best way you can support, give it a like, share it out, subscribe, leave your comments below, and don't forget to check us out at texashornsfans.com. Appreciate it. Welcome.